Movie Park is a somewhat overlooked park located in
GROTESQUE.
Germany. It's most well known for rides like Bandit, Germany's first modern wooden coaster, and Star Trek Operation Enterprise, a high-thrill mock multi-launch noted for its impressive theming and excellent ride experience. However, these rides are not the only interesting or notable coasters that operate or have operated at the park. Many years ago, a unique and interesting but now defunct Intamin multi-inverting coaster known as Cop Kart Chase operated at the park. And today, we're going to be looking to the history of this ride, what it was like, why it closed, and why it was forgotten by much of the coaster community today. The park known today as Movie Park Germany went through several name changes and even some changes in management throughout its early years. The park struggled with these issues ever since its 1967 opening, and after closing in 1993 as Bavaria Film Park due to lack of attendance, Warner Bros. Purchased the property the following year and began transforming the park into their new film-based theme park, one which was even better than before. But in order to open up the new park, they of course needed new rides and attractions to make the park appeal to the general public. Among the new rides planned included two coasters. One would be a small family coaster, and another would be a notable high-thrill headliner. Problem is, they needed someone to build it. In 1993, Intamin debuted their multi-looping coaster at Disneyland Paris as a compact looping coaster which name translates to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Peril. The ride was deemed a general success despite all the issues Disneyland Paris, known as Euro Disney at the time, had been experiencing with underwhelming attendance. Warner Bros. Took interest in the new ride and wanted their own installation at their own new park. So, Intamin developed a custom installation of the model for the new park. However, some changes were made compared to the Disney installation, such as the 3 people per car being scaled back to 2 per car, but the most notable change was that the ride was now a dueling coaster with 2 trains which would travel through the layout around and through a themed warehouse while you race the other train. The ride also used a different magnetic braking system, with the magnetic brakes being placed vertically instead of horizontally on other Intamin Loopers which were built later. But after 2 long years, the new park, known as Warner Bros. Movie World Germany, opened in 1996, with both this coaster and a Vekoma Jr. coaster opening relatively successfully. The ride was at the time of opening themed to the 1987 cop film Lethal Weapon under the name Lethal Weapon: Hot Pursuit. Overall, the ride was unlike any of the multi-inversion coasters produced by the company before and even after its construction. The ride experience for both sides would start off with an ascent up the first lift hill, followed by some turns and dips before you descend into the warehouse, where both cars would navigate a vertical loop, side by side and in the dark. The ride would then swoop up and down through some turns in the dark until it hit a second lift hill, which once the cars crested, the ride would briefly go outside and turn around before going back in the building, and through some wild airtime pops before leaving the building again and finishing the ride with a bang by emerging outside into some side-to-side heartline rolls and turning into the final brake run. Overall, the theming and unique layout made this ride an interesting experience which set itself apart from other thrill coasters. The ride also utilized some interesting design choices, such as the classic Intamin Looper trains like those on California Screaming being present, a second lift hill which was unheard of on this coaster type, and short cars, which were still somewhat rare on this model. The ride also utilized some of the elements and features which would appear on more coasters of this type in the future. For example, though the first inversions were based more off the previous French coaster's loop, the Heartline rolls were new and unique, and were later to be used on the 10 inversion and 8 inversion coasters as the finale to their rides. Additionally, a more standard support structure that was not nearly as complex or intricate as the French installation was also used, which was a staple of future installations of this model. The overall ride and layout resembled that of a Togo looping mouse, which was a compact coaster which was cheap and small and targeted at smaller parks. Overall, these first 2 installations were most similar to this model, and the layouts would perform similar maneuvers. It could even be argued before the 8 inversion clones and rides like California Screaming, this model was originally meant to be on the more compact side. However, all good things must come to an end, and this ride was no exception. Why did this ride close? To answer that, we have to look all the way back to the opening of the ride. The ride was unique, including having features like the unusual magnetic brake setup, which might have been a bit harder to provide parts for, but magnetic brakes are not too hard to maintain, so this should not have been as much of an issue. The ride also opened 2 separate tracks, which meant double the track and components to inspect and keep functioning, which ballooned maintenance costs and needs. The ride also had a whopping 8 trains, which is huge compared to the average of 2 to 3 trains per coaster. Although each side had 4 trains and each train was relatively short, it still would have required a lot of time and effort to inspect and upkeep each vehicle on the park's end, making things more difficult and costly. However, all these factors combined were likely not nearly enough to shut down the ride the way it was. To understand that, we have to look back to 1999. That year, Warner Brothers transferred park ownership and management to Premier Parks, also known as Six Flags. Six Flags treated the ride terribly, not fully caring for the ride's maintenance demands. This poor effort on the company's part led to the ride's condition deteriorating much quicker than anticipated. Maintenance failures caused many issues for the ride, leading to serious mechanical problems to develop on the ride, which would result in it experiencing extensive downtime in the later end of its life. Even after Six Flags sold the park and it became the movie park we know today, poor maintenance still led to a poorly functioning ride system after the 2004 season. The disrepaired ride system, as well as poor functioning trains and even a damaged structure according to some rumors. After its retheming to Cop Car Chase, the new management could not save the ride, and its poor condition led to a major breakdown. According to rumor, this breakdown was a critical point where maintenance costs were simply far too high, and according to the park themselves, it was cheaper to demolish the ride outright than repair it. This ended the ride's life prematurely, and a man-made lake and a few flat rides would go into the spot where the ride once operated. The ride was ultimately forgotten by the coaster community and the world as a whole for a few reasons. First, the fact the ride closed nearly 14 years ago in 2006, giving many people time to forget and move on, especially with newer rides at the park like Star Trek Operation Enterprise and other rides. The fact the ride is gone, especially with this much time since its closure, allows less records of the ride's existence to exist out there and allows it to fall into obscurity much more easily. Second is the park itself. Movie Park is not a well-known park among enthusiasts outside of Germany or Europe, and is less traveled by foreign coaster enthusiasts. Due to its less notable coaster lineup and the presence of other more notable parks like Europa Park and Heidi Park nearby, people tend to forget this park and skim it over in favor of other parks. The third and final reason for this ride being forgotten is that though this ride was unique and different, it was likely not the highlight of many people's German coaster trips, even with the interesting traits. It was likely not too intense or extreme of a coaster compared to rides like Expedition G-Force or Colossus, which are both in the same country and are much more intense, thrilling, and memorable compared to this ride. This ride was likely still a very good experience that's probably underrated, but the stars of the German coaster show really do divert attention from this ride for the few who have ridden it when it was operating, and make it much less likely for those people to remember the ride and preserve its legacy. These three factors all combine to lead this unique and promising coaster to be almost completely forgotten by many people and groups within the coaster community, and lead information on this ride to become highly obscure. I even had to use Google Translate to translate much of this information into English because of how obscure it was, being exclusively available in German. In conclusion, this ride was a well-themed, unique, and fun Intamin coaster that, due to poor maintenance and care from its management during its life, led to it suffering serious issues in its lifetime, which led to its early demise. Sadly, due to location and age, this ride fell into obscurity and unfortunately became a coaster we all forgot about. That's about all I got for today. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell. All feedback is encouraged and appreciated highly. We also just hit 20 subs after only 2 weeks of uploading, which is 10 per week. That's pretty great for a small channel like mine. If I continue at this rate, I should hit 100 by the end of the summer, which is pretty crazy growth for, this channel. So if you want to see me grow, please be sure to share out the videos to other platforms and among your friends too. That would help a lot. And anyway, that's about all for today. Peace out.